Hey, it's punk rock safety. And good Lord, it's episode 3. I don't know what the world's coming
Bust my buttons.
to. 3.
Is this still an April Fool's thing? Like, how long are we going to drag this out for?
I know.
least till
You know,
May.
like those people that do like birthday months. This
Yeah.
is going to be like April Fool's month. That's
I like
us.
it. Look,
This is 3 more than you expected.
It's 100% more than I
Episode
expected.
3, we added one guy. Like, we don't
That's
get
right.
constrained by math.
Episode
Nice.
10, this is going to be wild. It's like a collab, like a rap video with just everybody in it. We do have
Dancers.
somebody here. I caught some shit because we've never introduced ourselves, I don't think, other than I said it's David Bronner here too. But I feel like we're easy.
Is that
we're
true?
Easy finds.
You don't need
Yeah.
Ron needs no introduction.
No, he doesn't. Look
No.
at him.
Yeah.
He's
Look at me.
glowing today.
Glow.
Dave's in some sort of interrogation room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John's dressed up for his time with Charlie Sheen this evening. John, you ought to introduce yourself, though. That
Sure.
seems important.
That's awesome. Well, I can't think of anything more punk rock than to have your first guest. I assume I'm your first guest.
You're number one.
What?
Number
Yeah.
one.
I am the first guest, right?
Yeah.
I'm not a safety professional at all.
That's
So-
so fucking punk rock.
So good.
You know, can that be any more punk rock than that?
No,
So-
Ron said we don't need any of those last time. So
Yeah. How do
Excellent.
I hold this thing with strings?
So yeah, thank you. I'm John Wilkes, and I'm director for business excellence at a pharmaceutical company
okay,
in
that's
the
enough.
United
No,
States.
I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Pharmaceutical
Go ahead.
company.
It is a Charlie Sheen party lately.
I was going to say, is this where the Charlie Sheen jokes come in?
Hey-o.
I'm sorry. I was just looking for an excuse to make it about us again, but go ahead.
No, you're good. I don't have anything more to add than that
That's not right.
from an introduction standpoint.
I'm really excited to have John here. I just want to put that on the record.
I love this for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
This is
I
going
love
to be
it for
cool.
you too.
We might our listeners might even learn something today.
There's a good chance, John, that you're going to be voted to just run this all the time from now on.
It's really just going to be
if you could mute the other 3 assholes and just have John talk, it'd be a way.
I'll see
better
what I
podcast.
can do from my end.
So good.
And so since we did episode 2 before we kind of launched episode 1, so this is our first podcast talking since this thing's actually been in the wild.
Yeah,
What sort of feedback have you boys
it's
had?
just rave reviews. You know what? I think people have given us a lot of latitude so far.
Yeah.
I don't think we've proven the level of stupidity that we will by the time this one comes out, but we're going to earn it. I think.
So a guy who works with me. He's fantastic. He's from Bolivia, and so he speaks with this really big, heavy accent. And he's like, "I listened to your podcast," and he's like, "You talk about it's amazing. You talk about one thing, and then you talk about something else, and then you talk about something else. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
great." Well, that was probably the best review I think we're probably going to get.
That's actually the one we'll post.
Yeah.
I think
I think the best one I saw was, I guess we'll see where this goes, which I think is just they're open-minded.
Stating
That's
the
good.
obvious, though. I mean, that's a fairly obvious comment. I guess we will.
I guess I'll continue to breathe while this happens.
I mean, look, this is how I got to be a guest. I sent a review in, and my review was, I listened.
Yes.
Oh, you should come on the show.
I was in a
What?
fairly important meeting, and punk rock safety
If
got
all
came
the
up as
meetings that you're in are, let's be honest. I mean, you're a pretty important guy.
what can I say?
Okay.
And
Proceed.
no, and
They brought it up.
we sort of came up as the safety moment. So
How did we
right
come
at the
up as
start,
the
just a bit of
safety
a
moment?
shout out and a recommendation. There was some slightly constructive criticism though.
Oh, look
There
at
was
that.
there was a few people who jumped on board with you boys, giving me a really hard time about the whole inflatable boat crowd surfing thing, right? And no one
It's a thing.
no one seems to think this is a thing, right? But like, if it's good enough for Ramstein at pretty much every one of their conferences, I think it's good enough for us, right?
Did you say a conference?
I think that's exactly what he said.
A Ramstein conference. A lot of
Wow.
cool guest speakers.
Conference?
A lot of learning.
So this don't let it be
I'm just
known that
trying
I.
to- I'm just trying to picture this like logistically. Like we're gonna go to the concert. Let me just make sure I got my
Bring a
band
pump.
shirt
You
on
gotta
and
bring an air pump.
fucking I'm gonna sneak
How do
in
you
some
get that in?
alcohol. Let me bring my fucking raft.
Just,
Yeah.
Anybody
Just
got a
let it-
pump? So I can
Just doing
inflate this
backpack
fucking thing?
checks at the door. Did you bring a raft, sir? No.
So I guess
No,
for those
this
who are
is-
listening to the podcast, this is kind of weird. Those on YouTube can kind of see I've got a background with some inflatable raft surfing going on, and I just want it to be known that I'm prepared to do the research, for the podcast.
I like listen.
Isn't that your other podcast?
You've sent Drew out on assignment.
Yes.
Sorry, Drew.
All right. So
Oh, shit. I don't like to have a raft in the way, and I think John's with me on this. You got to go. You don't want anything getting in the way of that full contact.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of the experience, particularly,
For everyone.
for everyone.
You're
For
welcome.
everyone.
This
I
is
think-
fantastic.
We said we were going to talk about leadership. I'm not clear how long we've been going here, but we have yet to. We're thought
used-
leaders in the
That
field
was the
of
first time we've
rafts
used
and
the
crowd
word.
leadership or thought leader.
Well, both really.
That's a fun one too.
well, I thought you'd get the analogy of leaders being prepared to follow through on things that they say. That was what I was trying to do there.
Yeah, it's a lot of heavy
Fantastic.
lifting there on the thinking we were gonna. No, it's a great analogy. John, you want to just take over from here?
What are we going to
Wait a
talk
minute.
about?
I was guest, not guest host.
Oh shit!
Oh, that has been misrepresented. We're
Okay.
talking about leadership, is what we said.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I think what we were talking about is, there's leadership is one of those buzz topics that's not even just in safety, it's everywhere. We need good leaders, we need strong leaders, we need leaders who are visible, who are out there in the field, get out, engage and talk with the workers. And is that what we need? I mean, is that the answer? If we just had good leaders out there talking to people, would that solve all our problems?
What's a good leader? I think that's the part that doesn't get defined really well, huh? We just need good leaders out there. I don't know. I was picking on Boeing last episode, wasn't I? Not on purpose. They're
Kind
lovely.
of. You did it on accident?
Sort of. Yeah, I mean, it
Let's
just
not
kind of
use accident and Boeing in the same sentence. That's not
Hey-o.
good.
See. Well, for them, a good leader apparently is an engineer, because that guy's going to be in like AutoCAD making nuts and bolts, I guess. I don't know.
Designing doors, maybe.
Designing, well, or at least the fasteners to hold them on. That's all important stuff. That's big stuff. And it's what CEOs should be doing. Real frontline door attaching. So if that's not it,
Well,
there
when
we go.
I've
we got John
talked
going.
about this, when I've talked about this subject or heard it talked about, we talked about it from the perspective of a purposeful presence by leaders. And, that begs a question. What's your purpose for being out there? Right. And so and to me, I think this is where it gets hard, right? Because are you out there for feedback? Are you out there for relationship building? Are you out there for, God forbid, the coaching moments? What's your purpose for being present? And can a leader play all those roles faithfully? Can you show up one time being the relationship guy, and the next time being I want to coach you for this moment here. So it's a tough one for me.
Guys, he's a really good guest.
I
I
know.
don't know where we're going from here.
Oh yeah. I think
honestly.
All right, I'm out.
I think knowing
Jeez.
I
You want to
think knowing-
sandbag it a little, John? Take it easy, okay?
I think it is like what Ron said, and John. You know, we talk a lot about leadership in the field and leaders being visible felt leadership, and you know all these terms. And I like that purposeful presence. I think knowing what you're trying to achieve with your leaders being out there in the field really matters. And I always say, you know, don't make bad leadership visible. You know, it's better for a frontline team to think their senior leader's a dick than for them to be out there opening their mouth and removing all doubt, right? So
Absolutely.
I think you kind of got to help.
Now I know what I've been doing wrong
You've been talking.
for a long time.
It's not because, I mean, I guess depending on career pathways and that, you know, walking around in boots on a shop floor is not necessarily the natural habitat of a Gucci kind of wearing, you know,
Yeah, Ron.
you know, chief
Yeah,
executive.
I'm right here. Jesus.
He can hear you, okay?
So maybe worst visible leadership stories. I'll go first. I'll let you guys think. I was in a business, and one of the parts of the business had a small spike in injury rates, and so it was a remote operation. Senior leader chartered a plane, didn't have enough time to go to the site, so made all of the people from all the sites come into town. Dressed them all down about how they're not trying hard enough, they're not safe enough, and the injury rate's not good enough, and you've all got to work harder. Back in the charter and left. That was
Sounds
helpful.
cool.
That was helpful.
I mean, the charter sounds cool. That's fun. Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's like,
Like-
a Rammstein concert.
To John's point
Conference.
there, though, like, what is the purpose of that? And like, and I think that it connects very much to what Ben said too. Like, what makes a good leader? So, like, what is the purpose there? What is that individual in that moment trying to achieve in your mind? Like, like, or are they just responding?
Who are
Like,
you
what's-
talking to, Dave?
Anyone?
Me?
Like, I mean, myself. Jesus Christ, I don't know.
I think that's purely a
The
symbolic
universe.
act to try to convince the organization that they're taking safety seriously. That's got nothing to do with helping teams or leading teams or something. It's just no.
Yeah.
I've been out there. I've addressed it. I've done
But it
my
does
part.
qualify as Ron and I have our favorite acronym, which I think we struggled a lot with last time. MBWA.
And
Management
yes.
by managing
Yes.
by why is the Tom
Yeah.
Peters thing, right? So I mean that's managing by walking around, right? You're out there. Doesn't say anything about not yelling at people and telling them they're assholes. I can I tell you a story? I'm gonna tell you an aviation one because sometimes I do aviation things. I mean, a leader in an organization who wanted to be out often in the aircraft flying. He was qualified to do it, right? So he'd go out in the aircraft flying because people needed to see that visible leadership and also sort of be shown how to do it right. And he was just getting back into this practice and crashed the aircraft on the third flight out. I mean, obliterated the thing. It's you know, I'm not trying to blame the guy for getting out there, but I think maybe there's an over focus on going out and actually trying to do the work alongside people. You know, you don't have to get into the excavator to be involved in the process and talk to people and respect the work that's being done.
Well,
I
and
don't know if that's bad leadership so much as a bit of bad luck, but
well, so I mean, like, I'm trying to draw a through line here between, you know, these two
Oh, good luck.
stories. Yeah. So like, I'm out basically. Later, guys. No,
just do something else.
no, but like, so you know, on one hand, you have a leader who's trying to see it from the worker's perspective, getting out to the Gemba, you know, is another one of those words,
Ooh,
right?
It's a fun word.
Whereas in Dave's story, you have the opposite in a way. Like, you come to me and I don't give a shit about your context. I want you to understand my concern and you know, my issues, and I want you to get into the line that I've drawn for you.
Yeah.
And both of them are misguided in some sense, right? Like,
Although
like
I'd rather have one than the other, right?
yeah,
I'd rather back somebody off of the excavator operation than maybe the other
And
way
some of
around.
that's not too bad. Like if you're with the excavator driver and you go, and you're doing your leadership, and you go, can you just show me what it's like to do your work? Like just, open up the cab door, have a bit of a look around, have a chat with them. Like I don't see a problem with that.
No, that's super cool. I have asked if I could drive
Hmm.
because at one point in my life I could operate an excavator, and thank God
you
this
look
guy's
it.
like,
You've done a lot
no.
of shit, haven't you, Ben? Excavators, planes.
Yeah, drove a
You must know
forklift in a
stuff.
warehouse for a while. No, just
Did
trying
you
to
really
figure
drive a
out.
forklift around?
Yeah,
That's pretty great.
100%. We did forklift racing. People know this story about me. We would race forklifts, but here's the best one, and the world's gonna know. I mean, they knew I was stupid, but it's more evidence. So do you know triple expanding foam? You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Your
No.
gap filler.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Jesus. Okay,
Okay.
yeah, Google it, Ron, while we're doing this. The stuff you buy at Home Depot and you like squirt it
Okay.
inside.
Right.
Yeah, it
Yeah, yeah.
expands. Triple. So we had a can of triple expanding foam behind the warehouse, and we thought this will be so cool to run over with a forklift. You can't run it over with a forklift. It's the wheels don't do that kind of thing. They're kind of slippery. So it just kept kind of skittering along. And I thought I had like a little 2.5 pound sledgehammer so that you could move the forks if they got stuck. And I thought, man, I can nail this thing. I can hit it from all the way over here. And like 20 feet, I threw this little hammer and it's flying through the air. And this, you knew it was going at it. Like, boom, nails it. The whole thing explodes. It's all up the side of the warehouse. It's all over me. It's all over everyone else. But the can blew up. Cans are sharp when they blow up and cut into my shin.
Oh,
Yeah, like opened it up and there's just blood. There's blood coming out the side of the shoe. So I'm like, shit, somebody's got to go clock me out, man, before anybody sees. So
Why
I was
didn't you
taking,
just foam yourself up?
I was just putting shrink wrap around my leg. Amazing, amazing work. So I've done a lot.
Imagine if a leader had been there at the time.
yeah. If
Yeah.
only you had
Can you
strong,
just show
visible
me what
leadership.
how this looks for you?
And then
Yeah,
the week
hold up,
before,
hold
when
this
it's
hammer.
like we're doing a leadership visit on site, and everyone knows, I'm sure that the work is a little bit different than the work on that day.
A little, yeah. Yeah, the work
Well-
is it would have taken a lot of imagining to imagine that work.
So, I mean, like, okay. yeah. Ben's
We've
shit
really taken
notwithstanding.
sorry,
No, but like,
making it
so
about me again.
how does John, I feel like in what you said, is part of the through line and how people navigate that trade space between, Trump wanting to do too much versus wanting to do nothing, basically have
Yeah.
everybody come to you, and so how does like purposeful presence like navigate that and make it so that Ben doesn't do stupid shit?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a tough one, right? So, I mean,
A lot of people say that about me. That's a tough one.
yeah, I'm gonna have to call for the expanding foam on this one. No, so I guess let's start asking questions like, at what level of leader are we talking about being present here? My first question then is, where the hell was your supervisor when you were throwing hammers at
About 10 feet
foam
away,
canisters?
man. About 10 feet away. Just
Awesome,
sanctioning
awesome.
the whole event.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Fantastic.
it's
That's
kind
how
of
you
like
know
what,
it was a good idea. The
sure.
supervisor was there.
It's what's
You want from
what's
me.
that actionable leader level. I'm thinking about times. So in the environment that I work in, it's not uncommon for some of those areas requiring full gowns. Okay, you have to put on isolating PPE to go in, and so you're looking at an executive who as Dave, as you were saying, right, you get this power dynamic of people going into places that they are fish out of water, almost quite literally, and so they're falling over themselves trying to gown, and then they get into this space, and what practical advice could they possibly give? They never put on gowns. They're rarely, if ever, back into the manufacturing space at all. So what is their purpose for being there? Is it to is it managing by walking around, right? Because managing's not leading. So is it just to have to show up to say I care about the hammer you're about to throw, against the can, or
It's a really
something
good,
else?
really good hit though.
It was that is impressive.
I
That's
stand by it. Yeah.
Yeah, on target.
Like
So,
Thor. Amazing.
I think it starts with, at what levels are we talking about? That's going back there.
I think
Yeah,
I think it's a really good point. I think I always sort of look at, two levels when we think about this, the site-based leadership and then the off-site leadership. So the leadership that are there permanently based on site, and we might think about their purposeful presence on the floor, and then leaders that are off-site that are making a special trip to a site to do safety leadership. And those two may be separate conversations, definitely separate purposes. One's managing and one needs to understand the work to the extent that, is it going well? I think the off-site leader is there to learn, what's my organization really like? And how does that match the model in my head of what I think it's like to work in this organization? Because that's what I always like. A senior leader that's got some frontline context may prioritize different things at a senior level in the business.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be there for any meaningful operational improvement or operational action at that point in time.
Yeah. That's, John, to your point, right? What advice do they have to give? That probably none. And the sooner that they understand that, I think that's it's that humility aspect of leadership is to,
and I had
the Rock, who is, Dave loves the Rock, by the way, Dwayne the Rock Johnson, and who doesn't? He would always yell, "Know your role, jabroni." Dave, I'm sure you know this. That's leadership. It's leadership advice, right?
I did have a CEO once who asked me, why do you want me to go out in the field? I don't how can I be the best person to spot hazards and know what's good and bad and right and wrong? And he was quite a humble leader, a really great leader. It was a genuine question, like, why do you want me out there? And I said that. I said, if there's 5 levels between you as a CEO and a frontline supervisor, and every level only kind of provides 80% of the truth to their boss, by the time you're sitting in this room and a senior VP or executive is telling you anything about the organization, it's mostly bullshit. Like, they don't know. They don't know because they've heard it third or fourth hand. And now you've got 2 people sitting in a room trying to have a conversation about something in an organization that neither of them have any meaningful understanding of. So I said, your role in you going out there is compressing those levels of management, diving down deep and seeing how well does what you see match what you hear filter up through the organization. And I think that's a pretty important touch point for any executive.
Yeah, the former CEO for Kellogg, the cereal company, told a very similar story. He talked about the fact that he sat on the 5th floor, and he said he had this saying that cornflakes are made at the ground floor, and by the time they come up to the 5th floor, they're frosted flakes. Because they've been sweetened so much by the time that that news gets to him. And I think that's
that's fantastic.
I think Tony the Tiger was such a good leader too.
He's great.
I think he must have come along and listened to one of my conference talks.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Ramstein conference. I want to take a opportunity, as we like to say.
Okay, don't do that
on the cast.
Don't do that anymore.
Opportunity. Look,
no.
Here's I think a legitimate question though for folks when we're talking about leadership: is what does a leader do? There's a lot of voices out there that are talking to leaders saying, "Look, people aren't the problem; they're the product of this system and their environment. And they behave in a way that environment pushes them toward, and there are error traps. There's all these things going on. And some leaders really struggle with that because they go, aren't they just assholes sometimes? And aren't they throwing hammers at triple expanding foam? And I think that it's a legitimate question, having been the asshole throwing a hammer at triple expanding foam. I mean, how do you square that idea that sometimes people just go, I don't know, man, rules are not really my thing, so I'm just going to do this if that's cool. And some of the tenets of hop or what have you.
To be somewhat controversial, I don't have too much of an issue with that story.
Do you want to? Should we go try it? I mean, we're semi-pro at this shit. Man.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I will blast.
Yes.
Like, I'll probably wear shin guards, but other than that, yeah, I'm. No, but I think it's still, we can be still too, virtuous, right? As leaders, to just like not just go, all right, boys, you fucked up. Why did you do that? Like that can't have been sensible. How about we kind of just cut that shit out? Like, and I think that's the only leadership conversation that needs to happen, right? Like, you just.
So at what point do you invite someone to be another organization's problem? Like, here's a guy bleeding all over the floor, walking through a warehouse, right? Do you fire me or just tell me I'm stupid? I mean, I have pretty good sense.
I did have work with an organization where someone broke a serious rule and ended up in hospital. And the narrative from the company was, we didn't give them a final warning because we thought they'd suffered enough.
Yep.
Well, that was they said it as if like, we are such compassionate leaders that we have made the executive order decision that we will not do the automatic warning because we feel like they've suffered and we're very compassionate.
What a bunch of heroes.
I don't know. I think this calls for the substitution test, frankly.
Yeah.
Just like,
tell us more, John. Because now you've piqued people's interest.
No.
Is this like the Chris Farley thing where they give him, Ron knows what I'm talking about, where they give him powdered decaf coffee and he flips a table.
You son of a
you sons of bitches. Amazing.
No, so like this conversation is super interesting.
Don't
blow
it out of proportion.
At a conceptual,
this is like a lot of self-congratulation here.
Okay. Yeah, well, I don't want to say you're an idiot on the radio.
Fine.
It's 2024. I don't think radio is a thing anymore.
Well, I'm saying it on a podcast, so it's fine. But no, I mean, conceptually, like, to your question, when do you fire someone? That's what we're talking about, right? Sure. I am 100% like unequivocally of the belief that everybody, you can find that context, you can find that situation that makes it work for everybody. But I'm also pragmatic enough to know that there's always a cost benefit that the organization is going to have to go through, right? That said, like, I really do agree with Dave in this particular case. Like, I don't think, I mean, a lot of times people will punish someone after the accident happened. And like, that makes zero sense to me, because a punishment is an artificial outcome that we're creating because the actual outcome that we're worried about doesn't happen very often. So we're trying to create that negative reinforcement, right? It's pure behaviorism. And so we punish someone after they actually had the outcome.
What episode is behaviorism? When do we do that?
We're getting there.
It's on the list. It's on the list.
Okay.
But we're punishing them after they experienced the outcome that we decided we needed the punishment for, because that outcome doesn't happen. Like, then you're like double punishing them.
Is that to make them an example, or is it?
Yes, it has to be.
Yeah,
it has to be.
But like,
of course,
there already is the example. Like, humans learn reciprocally. Like I can watch you experience an outcome and I can learn from it in the right context. So why not spend more effort creating the context where we can learn from that?
So I guess, yeah, I think it's nice that we're 700 years on from like drawing and quartering people and putting them on the stakes at the front of the city, right?
700 years away and 4 years left to
Well,
go.
the only suitable punishment would have been death by asphyxiation of triple expanding foam
expanding foam.
submersion.
That would have been epic if like
know-
it like popped and got on your face and like
Here's what I think would have happened to me in that organization. I probably would have been fired if I hadn't been fired. And this is only because no one knew. And we were sworn to secrecy with the supervisor, who was clearly going to be in trouble too. I think had I not been fired, I would have been a part of one of those really cool tricks where someone in leadership says, you're going to get up in front of everyone at the company and tell them how
tell your
dumb
story.
So what do you think about those sorts of things?
Oh, remember
It's
Charlie?
sort of like drawing and quartering and then hanging out.
I think it's nonsense most of the time. So like I think taking an event and using that to share learnings makes a ton of sense. Forcing the individuals involved to do that for you is lazy and punitive. In guised like dressed as
it's shaming. Call it what it is. It's shaming.
It is. I think it's terrible, most of the time. Like forcing someone to do it is just terrible. If they say, hey, you know what, I'd like to share my story. Okay, let's have a conversation about what we want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think what's interesting is the narratives, the compelling narratives that organizations wrap around this. Like I've had leaders passionately tell me how great their culture is because I had this incident and this person then went around and spoke to all the other teams about what had happened and what they'd done and what they should do, and they've got such a great learning culture and sharing culture and all this stuff. Like there's just this positive reinforcing narrative around all of these things is I don't know, leaders. So I think leaders end up, if they're not careful, just believing their own bullshit, right? They've just got these rose-colored glasses on that thinks that my organization is fantastic. I'm leading this organization really, really well. And with the power imbalance, they don't either tune into, or people don't even give them any sort of feedback that suggests otherwise.
I think that's
it's still outcome focused, right? Even in the example that you said, people, shit goes wrong and they're like, I should probably go tell people about this.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But I think that's like, this is like, those are really, really good points. And to me, they're connected to like, we're going to make mistakes here because the feedback loops that leaders are getting about what's going on in their organization are always going to be fucked up. They're always going to be buggy. They're always going to be filtered, frosted flakes, like,
well, and I think that's the big point, right? Though I think you're right on, is that a big, and I think Dave was even saying this, a big part of why a leader has to get out there is to test the fidelity of the feedback loops.
Yeah. It's bullshit sensing.
And I like, I don't know about you guys, but I actually quite enjoy watching like the Undercover Boss show, where these bosses go out into their business and they just get fucking overwhelmed about how shit their organizations are and like people not getting paid
or how shit the job is, right?
And the job and they're just straight on the phone. I mean, I understand that US TV is a little bit beat up, but like they're on the phone trying to fix all these things, and then they feel like they're doing a good job because they give one person $1,000 for their child's education or something. Like they're just this big grand gesture or something. But I think the point is, like, how well would executives recognize their own organization, right, when they saw it at the very front line?
But I want to draw, like, I agree with everything 100% we're saying right now. I want to draw back to what Ben said earlier about, like, okay, yes, but they're not going to do everything. They just can't. And if we think of this as a situation where work is complex, well, you going out there and doing the work 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, doesn't mean you know everything about that work. Doesn't mean you know everything about that work. Doesn't mean you know everything about being a person who does that work day in and day out. Doesn't mean you know everything about being a person who does that work day in and day out. Doesn't mean you know everything about being a person who does that work day in and day out. Doesn't mean you know everything about being a person who does that work day in and day out. So the goal is not that you understand the entirety of the work. The goal is that you actually develop a humility that you don't understand it. And like,
Mm.
okay, what are the mechanisms that I need to build in my organization? To your point, Dave, like just giving a guy $1,000 fixing one problem doesn't fix the entire work system. Like, what are my feedback loops so that I can get better information so I can fix those things when they come up, or you know what I mean? Like you can't look at this like I'm going out there so I know, or like those workers who are leaders who are like, I used to do this job, so I know how it is. Like,
Yeah, which is
yeah,
almost the most dangerous, right?
yeah, exactly. Like, because
Yeah,
you
you
know
did
just
it.
enough to be dangerous.
Yeah, don't put me on a forklift today. Probably should have never put me on one. Definitely not today.
Well, yeah, after
But
this
you,
story.
you know, I think the thing too beyond humility and just sort of understanding um, that this maybe doesn't always look the same is the fact that it is a trade-off every day. And I think I don't know, that's the conversation I try to have with leaders when we go out, is just to say, if you've seen one day on this job, you've seen one day on this job. And when it's snowing and when it's hot as hell and when the truck isn't working and when someone calls in, it's a different day. And every time in real time, we're doing these trade-offs so it doesn't just fall to shit. And you can't go back to your office now with the knowledge of you've been bestowed with all this knowledge to write policy that will now address it. You'd be writing policy all damn day. So for me, it's that, it's a bit of understanding how the work gets done, but understanding that these people are negotiating shit every day. I can't do this because of this.
And
That's a
what
wild
you
part of work.
what you said to me is so critical because you just drew a connection. It's not about understanding how the work gets done. It's about understanding the shit that people have to deal with which affects how the work gets done. Right. So like we're not going out there to observe the workers and make sure they're following procedures or doing things safe or reinforcing safety. We're not doing anything like that. We're going out there to like see what's going on and start to make inferences. This is why they pay these people the big bucks, because they're smart people. They can make these inferences about how shitty things can be sometimes, and how can we support that people in dealing with that shittiness. How can we create better conditions for work?
Hey, John, you said something before, asked a question before about what level of leadership.
Mm.
And it's bugging me now because there's a thing that I
How dare you?
Sorry.
really, really love. No, look, you go
Didn't mean to
out.
bug you.
Yeah, sorry.
We know. See, Ron and I know not to confuse Ben.
It doesn't take a lot, but they've practiced. No, look, when we're trying to, you have leaders, especially the safety professionals that we talked about last time, that Ron said are unnecessary in any industry. It's the worst.
Y'all are trying to get me fired.
I think that was word for word, if I remember correctly. But you do these things like you pick someone who has to now do the safety topic of the day, right? Because you're trying to instill this safety leadership in them. And that's a completely different level, right? We're talking CEOs and senior leadership. And then there's at this level of kind of applied forced work. And I don't know, I mean, what is someone who's at that frontline supervisor, frontline level of leadership? What do we want to see from those folks? It's not forcing people to do the safety topic of the day, I hope. Much as Dave.
What if he just said that? It's the safety topic.
Yeah, I'm sorry, John. We're going to ask you to leave.
It's not the first time.
Just mute him. I have some sense he's not going to say that.
No, I think for me, it's really about being an asset to the people who are doing the work, right? Being someone who is there, who might have a level of expertise, who might have seen something like what is being encountered before. Help. I think if I could use one word, it's help.
I think you're right. I think it's very much a facilitation role at that level. I was at a pre-start. I don't know what you all call them in your industries, tailgates.
Oh, we don't do those.
You don't do those
No,
pre-starts?
I'm just kidding.
Not a good idea to have a talk about work before you go and do it.
No,
I understand. But
Just kidding.
but these guys are all sitting around, right? And this frontline leader has to kind of pull out this piece of paper and go, oh, our clients, everyone on site needs to sign this safety commitment. So I'm going to hand it around and can you sign it? And I just had this visceral reaction to this, right? Didn't even read out what was on the commitment, just started handing it around. And these guys, they don't give a fuck, right? They'll sign it because they're told to sign it, and they don't even read it, and they're trying to find pens and try and figure this thing out. And 3 or 4 times the supervisor's gone, hey, is that still making its way around? I'm going to get my ass kicked if you guys haven't signed all of this. And I just think, where are all those bits of paper going? And who thought this was a good idea? And it didn't really do too much harm, right? Because you could just see these guys deal with this sort of bullshit all the time. And they kind of just like, well, whatever. You could ask them like 5 minutes into the shift, what happened at pre-start, and none of them would probably remember signing a bit of paper, right? But I just see that activity as this, to what John said, this transition from like transformational leadership to servant leadership. This idea that a good leader, a great person, stands up the front of the room, paints this zero harm vision of nirvana and all these symbolic acts and these big statements and these grand plans, and then everyone just falls in nicely behind, like you said, Ron, and just follows the path. And servant leadership is like just a help role that John said. Is I'm not going to tell you what it should be. I just want to understand what is and what role I can play in making work a little bit better. I just kind of like that. What's our role in making people's jobs better?
I think that help thing, though, takes some thinking, because there's this sort of savior complex for some leaders, right? That they take that servant and make it savior, right? I'm going to swoop in here and help. And they're doing help in the way that they envision help. And the people doing the work are going, bro, this is not. It's the handing $1,000 to one worker.
Well, there's a difference between, there's one word that's the difference between servant and savior, and that's humility. Right. And so that's something we talk about a lot, is having humility, being humble. And so to me, that's the key difference.
Yeah.
So I've got a question for you guys then, because this is something that comes up all the time, right? Be curious, be humble. The next step for that, though, I think is what a lot of folks struggle with. And I think leaders do, but maybe they're not going to tell you, like, okay, be humble. Cool. Sounds great. How the fuck do I do that? Like, what do you want me to do now that is humble? What do you tell somebody?
So my sort of working definition of humility is not modesty. It's honesty. Right. And I think honesty in this particular case, like, so go back to what John just said a minute ago about the difference between a savior and a servant is humility. And if we substitute for honesty, it's about, okay, I'm being honest about my position and the position of other people. Right. So like the savior means that these people are weak. They're not able to handle it. They're maybe in some ways the problem and I need to save them,
Yeah.
Whereas the servant is
keep them safe from themselves, as we were talking about the other day, right?
Exactly, right? Whereas I think, the servant is more like, well, no, like the problem is something else. Like, it could be complex work or, imperfect conditions or whatever. Some dipshit with a fucking hammer throwing whatever it is.
I hope. Sorry, Ron, go.
No, but you know what I mean? Like, so if you do that, then to me, you recognize that, okay, to be humble is like, I need to go out there and start figuring out what they need, and to help them, to save them, even in some sense, I need to figure out what they need and position myself so I can support them in getting it. Yeah.
I was going to say, I don't condone, but I kind of hope someone goes, well, if one hammer and one triple expander phone can does that, I wonder what a box of triple expanding phone and an AR will do too. So anyway,
this podcast does not endorse the
they'll let us
shooting of triple.
Oh man, if there's
Anyway.
video,
Um,
listen, I don't want to let anybody down with the production of this podcast. It is one take, no editing.
Yeah. So
But
Ron,
I'm sure we can stitch in some video if you manage to
I'll do so.
somehow
I think
destroy our
I think
box.
I've shown that I'm prepared to do the research. So,
Yes, you have.
but Ron, I think Ron, to your point, like the narrative that I would love when I just listening to what you said and sort of really clarified me as a leader to just go, I realize that in this organization I have power and authority, right? But at a fundamental level, any conversation I'm having in the organization is human to human. I'm fortunate to have the ability to be able to make decisions that change the shape of the organization, but I don't know what's best for each task and each team, and I want to ask them and see what there is that I can do to change the shape of work in the business. And I think for me that's kind of, and that then if that's the mindset and that's the reason that you're going out and in purposeful presence is I actually just want to understand what's shaping work and how we might be able to, influence it in a different way, then go out there all day, every day and talk to people. If you're going out there to try to do all the other things that we've spoken about, then maybe stay in your office. Or
That's right.
on your
Tell
on
everyone
your
about
frame.
your open door policy and stay in your office. It'll be great.
Yeah.
What
The open door.
Dave,
Did we mention the open door policy already? I think that was you. Maybe week one.
Probably me. I don't know. I think you said though.
What's your definition of humility? Like, what do you say?
Who are you talking to? Me?
You, Ben. I'm looking at you. Can't you
Oh.
tell? Don't you know your position on my screen?
Listen, I don't as an individual, I don't have to work that hard at it. We have clearly established that every direction for me is up. It's an improvement, right? So I don't know, man. I think it's excitement. When I go to places where people are doing work, it is pure fucking magic to me, right? Like John's company is making pharmaceutical. Everyone should be dead, right? You go to an airport, like it should all be falling out of the sky, and it's not. And the only reason it's not is not because we've perfected the systems around it. It's because of it's cool human shit. And I mean, to me, and maybe it's because I start every day with a pretty blank slate. I think humility is just that curiosity of going, holy shit, like how did you do that? Even simple, well, seemingly simple stuff, right? There's a long ass list of stuff I could never figure out on my own. I don't know. So I think humility and curiosity are really, I don't know that you can disentangle them.
Yeah, I
I
kind of
throw
like
that word in
and
so you didn't think I was so stupid.
I like that people get shit done despite the organization's best efforts to make life hard for them.
It's right.
Yeah.
And no, right. It's not like organizations are the evil empire, right?
No.
There are very few people going, man, hold my beer. I think we can make this super tough for these folks. And we'll just see how they do. Right.
Well, and like,
trade-offs,
so
right?
I mean, fundamentally, I think the trade-offs that people are making back to, I think, John, you were saying way earlier, is that's what creates these so-called evil leaders. It's not like they're not going to Mr. Burns' School of Management. Like,
maybe they are.
Yeah.
Hey,
even Mr. Burns had a boss, the canary.
Did he really? I gotta go back and watch.
Dave is sort of our encyclopedic knowledge.
I
of
love
the
this guy.
Simpsons over
He's
here. It's
just-
amazing.
Anyway,
If nothing else, he's here for Simpsons.
but I think
I
there is-
can't wait
and
for the
memes.
background in the next podcast where he just pops up this fucking canary and Mr. Burns.
so but I think you're right. I agree with you. I don't think anyone's sitting there like narcissistically kind of going like, how can I just fuck with someone else's day, right? But
I hope not.
I do think people are either going, I don't know, I haven't thought about it, or my shit's more important. Like when I need a frontline supervisor to do something that I need for my job without sort of a consideration for what does that then mean for their job. I just don't think that that's the way we think in leadership roles and functional roles as much as we should. I mean, how many times do you do an impact assessment when you're trying to do something as an organization about what is actually the operational impact of this thing we're doing? Time, cost, culture. I just think we do shit that sounds good to us.
You know what? And what your comment right there is just really hitting on something that's in my head right now, which is the reality. No one wants to admit this, but the reality of how our organizations come to be without intentionality.
Mm.
They
Yeah.
just happen. And that's such a big part of it. We think we have a plan, but we can't possibly know everything that those actions are going to impact. And so, that lack of intentionality in all those other places creates all of the need for those adjustments and that people have to make to get stuff done.
Mhm.
I think that's I always wonder about this too, John, because it makes me think of it's the same trade-offs that the folks at the front line are making all day, every day. Leaders are making too,
Absolutely.
but it's black box to frontline folks. And that's why all of us, when we've worked the job, we're always talking about those assholes trying to make our life harder. And then when you get to that point in life, you're like, fuck, I wish they could see how stupid some of this
Yeah.
is.
I was,
Right.
Mhm.
And it's really tough to expect somebody who's frontline to feel sympathy for the thing that you're having to trade off as a
Yeah,
leader.
absolutely.
But man, it really illuminates how you feel at the front line.
Yeah.
I think when you do get a glimpse into it, I just don't know how to handle it.
I was working with I was talking with someone in a kind of working, but maybe shouldn't admit, with a manufacturing business, and the narrative thing. They were so proud that they'd done a global 1 day stand down for safety, right? So they shut down their production for a day. They were so proud that they'd done that at a cost of like $15 million or something like that, and that was their clear and demonstrated commitment to safety. They were prepared to shut down production. They got all people in, and they sat in conference rooms, and they talked about safety shit for a day, and then they went back out to work the next day. None of the weekly production targets had been changed because they'd lost a day of
I was going to say they're a day behind now.
No physical risk in that entire global organization had been reduced at all. And I said to him, if you had $15 million that you could spend on safety, would you put people in a room for a day talking about shit and sending them back out there with a whole bunch more pressure and no physical improvements to the work? This company was almost like they were going for a safety award, right? They'd just done this amazing global program, and I just like think it through, dickheads. Like,
Well, I think what you're hitting
Think
at,
it through, dickheads.
yeah,
That's a sticker.
that should be on
maybe.
that's got to be on one of our shirts.
good people break bad rules.
So good.
But like, through dickheads, good people break bad. I love that. But like, what you're hitting on is, I think, so critical. Like, again, just emphasizing the point that like these are well-intended people, right? And they meant to demonstrate their importance to safety. That's necessary but insufficient to actually improve safety or operations or whatever, right? Caring a lot is great. It's probably critical, but it's not enough. Like that you don't get any prizes for that.
And be very careful of things that sound good in the boardroom. Again, it's like the talking about shit you don't understand.
Yeah,
So I think we should make
definitely.
a prize, Ron, for well-intended effort, and just we can award that maybe annually,
But
whenever we feel like
it sounded like a good idea at the time, right?
The sounded like a good idea at the time award.
How do we have time? I have another question.
Okay, one more.
Give it to us.
Because
in case there's one person still hanging around listening at this point.
No, we brought him on the podcast.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
That's right. I listened.
I'm still
Good.
listening.
Yeah. Ron, I think you said in one of our other conversations about this thing that people say about leadership all the time, which, culture has to start from the top, or commitment to safety starts from the top. what the fuck is that supposed to mean? Does it start from the top? Do we care? Is it? I mean, these safety
Can
people
anybody
are.
answer?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at you. You can't see that.
Actually, I could in that case, but you probably were just
Yeah.
looking straight ahead. Or we just
one
have this
eye.
connection. Yeah, it's
That
like,
lazy eye.
Yeah, looking at you and Dave at the same time.
it's fantastic. It's unsettling. But
Wait till
no,
you see the rest.
I mean, to me, I'm going to caveat this with saying I'm skeptical of most of the conversations about culture that are out
Oh, I
there.
thought you were going to say most of this conversation.
Most of this conversation is bullshit, but everybody knows that by now. But like, if culture is a thing as people are meaning it, does it start from the top? No, and yes, but like yes, in the sense that those are human beings, and human beings create and recreate and shape and mold culture, and those are human beings with power, and so yes, they have a strong influence on it. But does it start? No. Like culture is something that can be created anywhere, and there's subcultures within organizations, and there's societal cultures, and like it just feels like such a overly simplistic thing to say. Like, I'd rather we talk about like power starts from the top often, and let's wield that power because there's a lot of resources at the top. So that's probably what we really are going after, not just feel good.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. I think the fish rots from the head, right? Like I do think that leadership and senior leadership matters. I think it matters a lot. To you, Ryan, I don't think it matters in permeating a culture of care through the organization, but it's about decisions, actions, patterns of behavior. What's important, what gets resourced, what gets time, what gets prioritized over what. I think leaders play a really important role in that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I totally agree with that. My career arc, I've been fortunate and unfortunate, depending on the context. I've seen really good leadership, and I've seen really bad leadership. And when you put one against the other, it becomes really obvious the impact that leadership has on an organization, up to and including that the dreaded culture word. So I don't think you can get away from the fact that leaders have an important impact on the culture of an organization. But to say that they and they alone have it and shape it and control it, I think is an overstatement.
Yeah.
What do you think, Ben?
Is that time?
Finish this off. Finish this off. Give it.
Oh,
Come on. This is like the Jerry Springer end statement.
Just run it home. I was going to give it to John. I like the Silicon Valley. Have you seen that show? Everything they're doing is middle out. I think
I've seen the Atari documentary. That's got some pretty good leadership messages in it.
That's killer. I've got a functional 2600 at home. It's
wow.
OG.
Shut up.
Wow.
No, it's the one I got in 1982.
That's really impressive.
Cool. Wow.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Ron, to agree with at least one thing that you said. I think lazy to say culture starts from the top or safety starts from the top. It's just a good excuse to blame leaders for everything again. And I don't think that's fair. I think there's a lot of power in sort of mid-management too, especially the folks that really still understand work as it's being done, but see a bit of the strategy as well. And they've got a ton of power in that, how patterns of work are created, to Dave's point, and how people think and feel and see work. So
that's a good point, that like I think sometimes that leader starts at the top, sometimes comes off as an excuse so that I don't have to work to influence the area around me to make change, because I'm not the leader.
Yeah. Okay,
John, you're our special guest. Do you want to close us out here? You got any parting thoughts?
Wow, geez. First of all, I
finally
you.
We're going to let you talk.
Oh no, well, look, I just want to thank you guys for having me as guest one. This has been really cool. I've certainly taken a few points away to think about. So yeah,
And
you
you'll
didn't
be-
ask me what my favorite punk rock group was. So
Oh, what
It's
is
time,
it?
though.
that's a shame. Well, I guess you'll have to invite me back.
Come on.
We'll hold that for next time. No, I was
What
gonna
is
go
it?
with the Ramones, man.
Oh, that's a
Oh,
good. That's
wow,
that's
old
good. That's
school.
really solid.
That's cool.
You know,
You
Did
been
you know,
listening to
like-
anything?
Like Green Day Dookie is 30 years old this year, and that blew my mind because that record, like
That killed
when I
it.
was,
Yep. That
yeah,
killed it.
back in
Yeah.
the day, that record like blew my fucking mind.
Yeah.
wow.
30 years old. That makes me feel bad
Old.
about myself.
Old.
Yeah.
Well, just
Good for
if
you.
if it's all a little bit too much, just take your pack raft to the next concert, Ron, and you'll be
Just
more
ride
relaxed.
around. Okay.
So
I'm going back to the Adolescents. That's what I was listening to most of the week because it's good to.
We listen, yeah, to a little bit of Bowling for Soup
Thanks.
lately.
Yes.
They've got some good shit. And the best
Nice.
album names as well of any band.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
A Hangover I Don't Deserve.
Ron was on a hip hop thing last week.
Yeah,
I
last
think,
time.
right?
Yeah.
I
I
love
still
that for
listen
you
for
in
us.
LA.
I love that for you.
I can see
Yeah.
Ron
What
in
should
the LA
people be
hip-hop scene.
listening to?
It was Nipsey Hussle's death anniversary this week.
Jeez.
That's a bummer. But
We'll close on that happy note. Jesus.
Wow.
A real ray
on
of
that
sunshine.
note, don't
What an
die.
asshole.
Unless you want your music played.
Yeah, I mean, then you get big, popular. That's the way to work.
All right, next topic. What's next? What was number 4? Does
I
anyone
don't
remember?
remember.
Was it behavior based?
It was
We're
either
gonna find
cultural
that out, and
behavior-based
we're gonna
safety,
get
so
back to
we'll,
you guys.
We'll toss a coin.
Yeah,
Have you been doing this long enough where you can be unscripted?
This is unscripted.
Oh my god.
This is the
total-
best we've got.
The total episode preparation, apart from me, burning time trying to find photos of people floating around in inflatable boats, consists of kind of one word, and the one word today was leadership. That's the sum total
That's
of the preparation for the podcast.
There is no editing, no preparation. This is very fucking punk rock.
It shows.
Believe it.
It works.
Great, awesome,
As
John. Thanks for
All right,
thanks for
gents.
coming along. Hope you don't get fired.
I hope not.
Well, at least this week.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, John. We'll do it
Hey,
again.
Thanks,
We'll
John.
do
It
it
was
on
fun.
episode 4.
Hey, I'm here when you guys want me.
Perfect.